Je anilo premadano karma kacho.
I thought I would read something I wrote for the last Yas Puja of my Guru Maharaj, and I could see her getting it from England, and I couldn't get it here, and I thought, well, anyway, let me just speak from the heart. And so I was just preparing to do that, and then such wish really just came and put it in my hands. So I'd just like to read this. It's basically some of the substance of our relationship. It's called Affectionately You Called Me. In '92 I received your first call. I was in the shower and the message came. Tamal Krishna Maharaj is calling you. You have to be there in 7 minutes. And I made it. Sitting in your bedroom in Vrindavan house, adorned with saffron and a Swami cap, you addressed my doubts about re-initiation and instructed me saying, you can't stand on the bank of a river watching the waters flow by. Find the courage and jump in. You then called me to accompany you on a walk to the Yamuna, along with Keshava Bharati Prabhu. Excitedly I ran to catch up with you. Is it too cold to take a bath? You asked. I responded, how do you take a bath? You won't regret it. You called me to your house to take prasad. We sat at the low tables in the small dining room, eating from leaf plates. You predicted that Padma had cooked the hot apple samosas, and were correct as usual. Understanding I was facing great difficulties in my Gurukul service, you called me. Suffering from great stress, I sat before you and wept. You consoled me and offered guidance. You wanted to go alone to Radha Damodar temple. You called me. We sat together in Prabhupada's room and chanted. You called me to accompany you to Krishna Sarovar, along with a Gurukul student, who you later initiated. The three of us swam holding hands in Krishna Sarovar. We sank some damaged deities from America in the waters, and then sang bhajans sitting on the steps leading into the water. We all fell asleep in the car on the return journey. You wanted to spend a few days at Govardhan alone. You called me. We sat together on the roof, gazing at Giriraj and chanting our rounds. Daily at 6 a.m. the Gurukul boys would run to my room calling, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is calling you. He's on the roof chanting. We walked up and down together. You challenged me on every aspect of the service I was rendering in the Gurukula. I survived the conversation. At a conference in Germany, you called me. You said that perhaps if you were to relive your life, you might have done it differently. However, you made all your decisions based upon increasing your service capacity to Srila Prabhupada. You encouraged me to get married. You called me to discuss philosophical and social issues at your house in Vrindavan. You would ask the questions and ultimately provide the answers. I was never quite sure what my position was in such discussions. All I knew was that you called me. And again. You called me to serve Prashadam. I said no. My life was already too intense without having to serve Tamal Krishna Maharaj Prashad. You laughed and criticized me as being from a crooked village full of crooked people who are worshippers of a crooked God. I relished your criticism and never served Prashad. You called me to your house in Cambridge. You were very gracious and affectionate to my new family. You said that my wife had class and required to be surrounded by opulence. You told me it was my responsibility to earn it. I moved to the Manor, you called me. Jabudana passed away, you called me. On every detail you called me. Visits to the mill you called me. Pizza at Bishop Bars you called me. Wasn't punching you called me. What are you doing as temple president? You called me. You wanted someone to talk to when you took Rashad, you called me. The sum and substance of my life was increased institutional responsibilities and attending to your call. Days after the crippling news of your departure, your servant called me on my mobile. As the phone rang, I looked at the LCD display to see who was calling, and it said in bold letters, TKG. Showing the display to my wife, we both sobbed bitter tears of separation. Will you ever call me again? Will I never hear those words? Glory does. Tamal Krishna Maharaj is calling you. My spiritual progress was based upon my attending your call. Broken-hearted and bereft of your association, I pray. May I again hear your call and find myself forever in your association. As an object of your affection or criticism, your lowly servant awaits your call. Glory does.
Sorry, I'm a bit dry. I'm very happy to say something about a very dear God brother and a spiritual mentor and a close friend. It's one of the symptoms of greatness that when a great personality deals with others, each person that he deals with feels that they have a special and unique relationship with that person. When Krishna was dancing in the rasa dance, every gopi, although Krishna was dancing with all the gopis, each gopi felt that Krishna was only dancing with her, because that's his greatness, that he can extend himself unlimitedly to unlimited relationships and deeply immerse himself in those relationships. Every living being has the same qualities as Krishna, not unlimitedly, but to some degree. And the more Krishna conscious a person is, the more they exhibit those same qualities that Krishna has. So we saw that in Srila Prabhupada. He was able to extend himself. I saw that practically many times in the way that he dealt with his disciples, or even people that weren't disciples. Somehow or another he could strike up a relationship and people would go away feeling that they had some kind of unique connection with him. And this last year especially, I've come to understand more and more that Tamal Krishna Maharaj has that same quality. The same symptoms of Krishna consciousness, that whoever he dealt with, all of us, we all felt that we had some kind of a special and unique relationship with him, that he dealt with us in such a way, it was so personal and direct, that we all felt that special effect on our hearts. Excuse me. So, in Vrindavan, Ritapava Maharaj, he sent an offering. And in that offering, he mentioned that he discovered that there were two Tamals. There was Tamal at the office, and there was the real Tamal. he had spent some time with him personally, serving and helping him during his period of illness. And I was reflecting on that, and I was thinking, well, of course, that's the quality of a Vaishnava, that he can be as hard as a thunderbolt, and he can be as soft as a rose. And Tamal's brother Carl also mentioned that at some point somebody had asked him if he was going to be initiated by Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj had said, no, absolutely not, because I can't have the same kind of relationship with him if he becomes my disciple. It would disturb the sweetness of the relationship that he already had. So I also had a kind of personal experience of that consideration that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was so expert at providing. Just after Prabhupada's disappearance in early 1978, I had invited Tamal to come to Australia to be the initiating guru there. So we had a little talk. And there were one or two incidents that occurred that were kind of, they were actually exceptional. They hadn't happened previously. One was in New Zealand. There was a prospective disciple, Sabal. He was cooking for Maharaja, and he was coming down the steps with this pot of hot dal. Maharaj was just coming up, and somehow or another Sabal tripped, and so the hot dal went all over Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So you can imagine his reaction. So he thought, you know, these people down under, they're kind of far out people. What kind of a disciple is this that throws hot dal on his guru? And then later on we were in Sydney, and he was giving a sunny face lecture. He was just chanting Jai Radha Madhava. And there was this crazy boy in the audience that suddenly leapt up onto the altar, took the brass deities of Lord Nityananda and tried to smash the marble deities of Radha Gopinath. He was just barely prevented from doing that, and you can imagine the turmoil that took place after that. So again, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was thinking, well, you know, Australia is a really far out place. And there were other things that I involved him in that. We had a temple president's meeting, and we were discussing various things, and we asked him to come along, and he gave his opinions, like that. So then we ended up in Mayapur a couple of weeks later, and he called me in one morning, and he said, actually, he said, I'm not going to be the guru there. He said, Bhavananda can do it. He's more merciful than me. He said, I'm not merciful enough to initiate the Australians. So I was thinking, you know, what is this? It's not merciful enough, you know. Anyway, a couple of years later, he was visiting. So he took me aside one day and he said, actually, he said, I want to tell you the real reason why I didn't want to initiate here. He said, because I saw that, you know, as the GBC, you were managing everything and you were involved in everything. And if I had come here as the guru, he said, it's my habit. I like to manage and I like to be involved. And he didn't say it directly, but he liked to control things. And he said, I saw you were doing that. But he said, we have our relationship that had developed on the basis of our service to Srila Prabhupada. We had spent 3 months together serving Prabhupada at different times. And he said, I don't want to disturb the sweetness of that relationship. So he said that was the real reason why I didn't come here as the guru. So I very much appreciated that. But then I was thinking, because of this thing Ritatvaja Maharaj said about the Tamal at the office and the real Tamal, that when you're in a formal situation, that's kind of like at the office, and that's necessary, and a lot of people saw Tamal in that way. But if you were fortunate enough to get into the sweetness of the relationship, that went beyond the official relationship, and then there's no going back. Once you have that sweetness established, you don't want to go back to the formal and the official and the Tamal at the office relationship. You want to maintain the sweetness. And I understood then that meant to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, it was the sweetness of the relationships that was paramount. Although, you know, he was famous in our society for being such a demanding manager, down to the last detail of everything. But actually, his real heart, the real Tamal, if you like, or the soft as the rose, that was more prominent. And when you got close to him, that was all the relationship that he required. And he would put aside the other stuff in order to maintain that sweetness. So that's something that we'll all miss. He's gone on to serve Srila Prabhupada. That was the sweetness, the sweetest relationship that he had. I saw that just in the last month or so in Vrindavan, because Tamal Krishna Maharaj had come to serve Prabhupada as his secretary in January of '76. That was the first month that I'd spent with him doing that service. I was the Prabhupada servant. Then again he came the next year in February here in Mayapur, and then he confided me after a couple of days that he was giving up his GBC duties. He wanted to give up being out in the preaching field, and he had made a firm determination in his heart that he was just going to come and be with Prabhupada personally, and that he wanted to just stay with Prabhupada personally for as long as Prabhupada was left on the planet. He said, whether that's 10 years or 1 year, I don't care. But I've spent 8 years going out and preaching because that's what Prabhupada wanted us to do. But he said, I need that relationship now. I want to develop my personal relationship with Srila Prabhupada in a more intimate way. And at the time I was thinking that I was starting to think that it was my time to leave the party and to go out and do some preaching, because I had not done that before, but I'd been with Prabhupada for about 1.5 years. And it struck me very strongly at that point that perhaps Prabhupada is actually changing his Leela. I actually wrote it in the diary that I was keeping, that I was speculating, but it turned out later to be true, that I thought Prabhupada was actually beginning to change his Leela from preaching to Nirjana Bhajan, and that now Krishna was bringing this very senior, or the most senior devotee, the best person possible, to come and look after Srila Prabhupada in his last days on this planet. And that, I had my formal training, and now it's my turn to go out. And that's actually what happened. Prabhupada got sick at that festival, and then the last 10 months we all know about. So then later on I came back in October. Sorry, I just have to finish this. I came back in October, and I saw that change in Leela had been affected both by Srila Prabhupada and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. The way that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was dealing with Srila Prabhupada was way beyond and way more intimate than anything any of the servants and secretaries previously had done. Prabhupada had put himself totally 100% in Tamal's hands, and he was dealing with him so sweetly and so affectionately. I was surprised, I was shocked actually, and I realized I could never have done that. Only Tamal could have done that. So one last point, in '76 in New York, Ramaswara, we were driving back from a morning walk, and Ramaswara was in the car, and Tamal was there, I was there. And he asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, just as Krishna, whenever he appears in a particular place, he has like an entourage that goes with him and they assist him wherever he goes. He said, is that the same for the spiritual master? So Prabhupada said, yes. So my realization is that Srila Prabhupada has some personalities that travel with him and help him with his preaching. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj is probably at the top of the list for going and traveling on that entourage to spread Krishna consciousness, and I'm quite sure that that's what he's doing right now. Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki.
Thank you for letting me speak. I first met Tamal Krishna Goswami here in Mayapur in 1989. He was holding a series of Nectar of Instructions lectures in, I think it was his room. And I didn't want to go, because at that time I was very distressed, because I had been initiated by Bhagavan Prabhu before, and he had left, and I tried 2 times to take shelter of another spiritual master, and both of that failed. And at that point my heart was very distressed and confused, and I didn't want to see another guru doing his thing, basically. So, but my friends convinced me, and he gave this lecture where he spoke so powerfully about the spiritual master that one should have 100% faith before taking initiation. And in my yatra coming from Amsterdam, there was a strong rhythmic wave going on at the time. And I didn't want to be part of it, but I couldn't build any devotion against that current for anyone, really. So he said, I asked this question against my false ego and my mind. I put my hand up and I said, do you have to have 100% faith in the spiritual master before taking initiation, or can you do it like as a formality? Because temple needs Brahmins, and then I've only gotten one initiation. And he said, yes, 100%, otherwise you better wait. So my heart, just like now, it was going like this. Wow, it sounds like what I first learned when I joined, that you can have just to surrender to the Guru. And so I tried quickly to say, I tried that, and I banged on that. This one didn't work, that one didn't work. He said, yeah, so your faith is distorted. Why one Guru, he said, pray to Prabhupada that please give me the association of your most advanced disciples. And I did that. And when I came home, every night I would pray just one simple sentence, but I was hoping that my heart would be healed. And I can't tell the whole story, but we developed faith in His Divine Grace, Srila Gurudev, so much so that when he invited us to travel with him around the world, it's like a dream. We had to, we as my husband and me, we had to save up for 2 years to collect the funds to do that. And it all took place in the summer of 1991. We would travel with him for 3 months. So the first, almost in the beginning of the journey, the first plane that we took with him, somehow, because of our inexperience, we left one of our suitcases in Denver, which had to go to Los Angeles. So when he spotted that, he said, all right, I just want to make one thing clear. I'm not traveling with both of you. I'm not taking responsibility. If you're so spaced out you can't even keep your luggage with you, I'm not traveling with you. You can travel, but I'm not taking responsibility. So, I mean, I thought, what now? But, of course, already. Okay. Anyhow, he's my guru. I love him. Even I noticed that his love for me, I always thought I had to do something to earn his love. First it was distributing a lot of books, then it was taking care of his tape ministry, distributing a lot of tapes, which I did for a couple of years. I was a wife of the temple president, all these designations. I was trying to impress him and to earn his love by that. But as the wheels of fate turn, all these things got taken away from me. My Sankirtan dropped, my tape ministry couldn't do, my marriage broke apart, and all through it, I could take shelter of my guru. I could phone him, I could write to him, I even phoned him once, asking him, should I take this job? They want me to work now. Can I take this job? I said, all right. And he was actually thinking about it and called me back. And it's just incredible that this world leader, who everybody had so much appreciation for, could care for me. And I know now, and that is my most precious realization, that his love is unconditional. And I really pray also to all of you that my love for him may also become as deep as he loves me. Thank you. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Prabhupada.
I know on these formal occasions, he would always want everyone to be addressed formally. He didn't like it when people called him Tamal. Although informally, sometimes we would address each other. Well, I joined Krishna Consciousness movement in 1968 in San Francisco. I saw Tamal Krishna Goswami and Vishnu John. Mainly, I was talked to by John the Guru, Jana China group. I saw them, they were dancing in kirtan. They all impressed me very much. And I didn't know that later I'd have so much association. Then I was sent to India in 1970. And that time, when Prabhupada arrived from Japan, then soon after, Tamal Krishna Maharaj also came to India, or maybe he was with him, I can't remember. But I think he was with him at that time. And I remember Srila Prabhupada sending him out to purchase the land in Mayapur. And how we were discussing, he was telling me how he came and they wrote down the serial number of every note that they gave for the land, just to prove that we paid for it. And he was telling me how when they went out, it was only maybe 11,000. It wasn't a lot of money, but they thought it was a lot of money. And the villagers, they had gone out with a truck filled with all the villagers with pitchforks and sticks to defend themselves in case they were, ambushed on the way back, take their money. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj went with the other devotee, and he was Bali Maharaja at that time. And they went, and finally when he came back and he could give that document to Srila Prabhupada, and give that tell Prabhupada was done, Prabhupada was waiting up for him. It was such a big thing, a big relief for Srila Prabhupada. Then, so that time I was in Calcutta, and he was my GBC. So I had the opportunity to work under him. At that time, he was like a Siksha Guru. But I wasn't a very submissive disciple, being a younger. So he would get, it was hard to train, I think, but I'm sure between him and Srila Prabhupada, whatever, if I have anything at all, a very spaced out person with any good qualities, it's all any kind of managerial area, I'm sure it was all something by their training. He would get very impatient with me sometimes, and I think 10 times he removed me as the president. Later, he either put me back or Prabhupada would put me back. So I told him, you're supposed to just advise, don't because you know how to do it right. I wasn't able to really understand so well. But then when then I got shipped out to Mayapur, and we were working together to build the buildings. He'd come and oversee, and he'd help. And I remember we were riding together sometimes on the stone trucks and the steel trucks, because in those days we were so afraid they were going to steal the stuff from us. And they did actually. One time we were taking the truck out, and we were all together, each riding on a different truck. We stopped on the way. Someone used to come in and have a glass of hot milk at some roadside stand. We were so hungry the whole day we hadn't eaten, so people were taking this glass of milk. Then when we were taking the milk, some ran and told us that they're actually stealing your steel and throwing it in the ditch. We ran out, and sure enough, they had unloaded some of the steel. So we were like that, working together, and at that time the relationship became more like a brotherly relationship. And then Tamal Krishna left India. I went to America. He said he thought the calling was that now stand the Sankirtan over there. And he'd come and visit during the festivals or sometimes to serve Srila Prabhupada. So I was there in Mayapur when Prabhupada told him that he should go to China. And of course he was, initially he was quite shocked, but Prabhupada insisted, no, you have to go. Then he surrendered to it. I mean, how many people would surrender? It was inconceivable. There was no idea. It was just a totally uneven considered area how to develop China. But Prabhupada said, no, you spoke it, and this is a sign from Krishna, you should do it. And when Prabhupada insisted, then he surrendered and did it. So you can see how much he was actually surrendered to Srila Prabhupada. And I remember sometime also when he was in Bombay and he went to Srila Prabhupada and he was saying, there's so much to do and you're giving me so much, I have no time. So then Prabhupada said, well, it's no time for mine. So Prabhupada also put him under a lot of pressure. I mean, he knew how to get the best also out of Tamal Krishna Goswami. And then when he came back to India, when he was serving Prabhupada, as Hari Suri said, in the final days, then I was in Mayapur, and I had newly been appointed as a GBC. After that time, I had just been temple president, co-director. But I would spend as much time as I could with Srila Prabhupada because he was very sick, and I was all praying every day that he would recover his full health. So about half the time I was with him in, so I was with Tamal Krishna Maharaj either in Bombay or in Vrindavan. It was very sweet that I remember how when we had a discussion with my Prabhupada going to Govardhan, we were just crying and crying to Prabhupada, how can you go to Govardhan? The doctor says you won't come back. And Prabhupada tested us so much, you can read the details in Servant of the Servant. And we were so much together at the time, we were just trying to really caring about Prabhupada, and it was very wonderful. After Prabhupada, I won't go through all those things, but it was nice to go and meet him. I would go and meet Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and then he always stayed as a GBC for most of the time. Sometimes he was actively here, sometimes he told me that I'm going to come back and do the university. In fact, the last week when he was here, we were together, we bathed in the Ganges, and he was so loving and so kind, and he was just saying that I'm going to come back and do the university. I want to settle down in Mayapur. I love it so much now. And well, he kept his promise. He always kept his promises, but we never expected he'd come back and stay in this way. I remember on the fateful day a year ago, just after Mangalarti, I would say my Gayatri, and then Shiva Maharaj came up and told me that there was some accident, we were immediately going, so we had a car and went. Could never imagine that actually Krishna would call him away at that time. And I missed so many opportunities to serve him or associate in the past few years when he was doing the educational service. I could do a little service for his Bapu after he left. He was always so kind when I was in the hospital in 1989 in Madrid. When he and Shiva Maharaj came and brought their deities, I didn't have a problem trip because I lost in the attack. I wanted to have Baba chant on it, follow Prabhupada. I would ask the Krishna Maharaj to chant Baba poetry. So he was kind enough to do that. And so I still have the parampara here. My brother three so thank you. So Krishna Maharaj and Prabhupada. And he was merciful. He didn't have a Brahmin chat before I put him in the Samadhi, so then I reciprocated and gave him back a Brahmin chat. I hope we can always know we have a very big responsibility to try to carry on the great example he's shown of serving Prabhupada. We need all the God brothers' help because to do this university, we were so confident with him hanging it up. We have so many PhDs in this town. Maybe all together we can try to do and finish what Tamal Krishna was going to do and build it what Prabhupada wanted was a university in Mayapur. And dismissing his association very much. Hare Krishna.
Shingade Prabhu next. And then we call Jonas Mani. There's so many nice stories to tell about Srila Gurudev that what I'm thinking is you all know how much he served Srila Prabhupada. There's no doubt there. But also how much he served all of us. And in his final passing, and I think we all experienced very deeply what happened there. On reflection, we can see that this movement, it's a movement for breaking hearts open. Krishna, he broke the heart open of all the gopis. Prabhupada broke the heart open of all your, the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And similarly, I think Srila Gurudev, he's broken all our hearts open in his passing. And to give love of Godhead, you hear about it, but to actually have someone give it to you in a very realised, tangible way is not so rare. It just doesn't happen generally. And in his passing, I think if you all just reflect, just for a minute, how you were feeling when you heard that news, that Srila Gurudev has left his body, that the grief, the shock, the angst, the bewilderment, personally I felt hopeless. Like you read in the Shastastika, Lord Chaitanya, I'm feeling awakened in the world in your absence. I actually felt that. It was very real. I was, what's left? That's it. My life's over. Basically, that's what I was thinking. And then, so this is a gift. If we can remember that, that will help us a lot in our devotional life. And the gift is, it's real. It's not an artificial thing. It's love of Godhead. And we got a glimpse of what it's like, I feel, for the gopis and their love for Krishna, for the devotees and their love for Lord Chaitanya, that we have to hold on to that moment in time. Remember those promises that we made to Srila Gurudev at that time. I'm pretty sure we all reflected and yes, I want to be better and all the rest of it. So I'm just very proud to have him as my spiritual master. Because likewise, I also had another spiritual master. Just forgive me. You just want to tell me? Right. I want to be with you always. And if I could get your blessings, I'll do it. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhascha kripasindhubhyavacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you for allowing me to speak a few words here. On this sacred day, this sacred place, and this sacred association. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, he is my senior god brother and my spiritual father-in-law and my Shiksha Guru. So I feel very fortunate to have all these connections with such a magnanimous personality. I certainly need all that mercy. According to the Vedic culture, in the absence of a father, it is the duty of the older brother to take care of the younger brothers and sisters, just like a father. During the year before Srila Gurudev came to Mayapur, one day he called me up from Cambridge, and he wanted to invite me and two other god sisters to go to his house. And I couldn't understand, just out of the blue, because usually I would always go together with my husband. If there was some special occasion, we would go there together. And all of a sudden he just called me up and said, and he named two other god sisters, and he said, please call them and invite them, and we want the three of you to come. And I said, but why should we do that? Is there some problem? Do you want to talk to us? And he said, no, I just want you to come and open up your hearts to me, because I feel that, as you're my younger sisters, and it's my job to take care of you. And I was just so touched, and it was just such an amazing thing. But as an older brother, and also being the spiritual master of my husband, Vishwambhara, he is also my spiritual father-in-law, and my primary Shiksha Guru after Srila Prabhupada. So, I wanted to say that although his demeanor was strong, sometimes he appeared to be harsh or heavy, but beneath that thin veneer there was a heart which was just overflowing with love and compassion and kindness. And I had a chance to experience that so many times, because he would come to our house and we would serve him, we would cook for him. We went on parikrama with him, we got so many instructions from him. And I feel very lucky because I didn't get very much personal association with Srila Prabhupada. But I felt that Srila Prabhupada, he's been taking care of me through Srila Gurudev. And in that way, we're always protected. And when his dear disciple Kirtana Devi disappeared in 2001, I was lamenting to him at that time, just after he came back to England from Dallas. He came for the Rath Yatra, and I was talking to him sitting underneath Lord Jagannath's cart in Trafalgar Square. He was describing to me the wonderful experience of her passing, and the way he was speaking to me about his relationship with her, I could understand that she had completely conquered his heart with her service and her devotion, so far as that he actually accepted her as his own mother. And I said to him, you must be really missing her a lot, Srila Gurudev. And he said, no. He said, I'm not missing her because I haven't let her go. He said, she's still with me. I haven't let her go. And he would keep her picture
on his desk in Cambridge, and also when he moved to Oxford in his study, the picture of Kisada was always there on his desk. And he was always remembering her and feeling her presence. So in the same way, I can't let him go. We shouldn't let him go. Why do we have to let him go? He's still with us. If we keep him with us, then he's still with us because we need him. We need Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj because he's one of the brightest beacons of ISKCON, and we can't let that beacon go out. We can't let the darkness pervade. So we should help each other to keep him in our hearts and to carry on serving according to the training he gave us, the training that he received from Srila Prabhupada and that he gave to us. We have to carry on, and because he's together with Srila Prabhupada, watching over us, looking after us, looking out for us all, and both of them are patiently guiding us continuously on the forward path back to the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Madhava. Hare Krishna.
So Srila Gurudev is like a transcendental desire tree, just as a glorious tree produces so many fruits. So we can understand how glorious Srila Gurudev was, his qualities, his attachment for the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada in the process of Krishna Consciousness, by the many wonderful fruits that he bore, his wonderful relationships with his God brothers and God sisters, his full dedication to the mission of Srila Prabhupada, and his inspiring over 1,000 disciples to fully take shelter of his lotus feet, become dedicated to assisting Srila Gurudev in his mission to Srila Prabhupada, and inspiring thousands of other well-wishers and friends, attracting so many people to the process of Krishna Consciousness. So this is one way we can understand the exalted personality of a great person like Srila Gurudev is if they can inspire others to develop their love for Krishna and becoming detached from all the illusory pleasures in this world. Just as with Srila Prabhupada, he went to the West and attracted so many personalities to the process of Krishna Consciousness who were formerly completely caught up in material pursuits of life. Similarly, Srila Gurudev was also such a personality, attracting all of us who before coming to Krishna Consciousness we had no knowledge, no understanding of the real purpose of the human form of life, and we're all completely immersed in sensory activities. So Srila Gurudev has left us a great legacy. He wonderfully assisted Srila Prabhupada in spreading this Krishna Consciousness movement far and wide in so many frontiers. We've seen China Mission, Dallas, Houston, Fiji, Australia, New Zealand. He was one of the great pioneers to build up our movement in these different parts of the world. And practically, we can go anywhere in the world and everyone knows about the glories of Srila Gurudev, even devotees who never even met Srila Gurudev. They still know about his wonderful, glorious qualities and activities in Srila Prabhupada's preaching mission. So as we hear many devotees saying, Srila Gurudev is still with us. We have to remind ourselves constantly of this. He's always with us in his Vani form, in his instructions. We have to take more and more shelter of his instructions coming from his God brothers, God sisters, senior disciples. Take shelter, more and more shelter in his books, his lecture tapes, his videos. And this way we can still fully feel the presence of Srila Gurudev. So I was very fortunate to get quite a bit of association with Srila Gurudev, although I didn't take full advantage, and I'm realizing that more and more now. By his mercy, I was able to travel to him to different places, Fiji, Philippines, Hong Kong, Taiwan, New Zealand, and I became very inspired by seeing his loving exchanges, reciprocation with his different disciples, God brothers, etc., in these different zones, and how he inspires so many people in so many different parts of the world to dedicate their life to becoming Krishna conscious and giving Krishna consciousness to others. So I pray that I may gain constant inspiration from Srila Gurudev and his followers to stick to the path of Krishna consciousness. I feel that it's largely due to his imbibing me with a sense of dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission that I've been able to stick to the path of Krishna consciousness. So I owe my whole life. And the only way we can try and repay our debt to the spiritual master is to be Krishna conscious and try to, as much as possible, give Krishna consciousness to others. And this is one of the most pleasing things that Srila Gurudev was always pleased with, his disciples' dedication to the preaching mission, to inspiring many thousands of other people to come to the under the shade of the lotus feet of Guru and Gauranga. Srila Gurudev Ki Jai.
Very beginning that if I surrendered to His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj, I'd get the training to become a first-class person, a first-class devotee. And I also knew that I would never do it. He was very commanding, and I was very obstinate. Keshav Bharati Prabhu reminded me that when we were staying together at his house in Kartik in Vrindavan, we were both chanting a chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And so we got together to chant, and he wanted to go fast and I wanted to go slow. So he would keep speeding up and I would keep resisting. We somehow finished the chapter that day. But anyway, we hear 1,000 who were so courageous and fortunate that they did surrender to him. And it's known that he trained his people. He invested his commandeering, demanding nature and his affectionate nature in expertly training his disciples. And therefore there's a great weight incumbent upon you. We were hearing this morning that the personality of Godhead is represented by the Ganga. And in a similar way, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj is represented by his disciples. We've heard about the great things he's done and the wonderful ways that he dealt with devotees. And now that energy is invested in you, and we have to expect great things. I think if he were here personally, physically, he would be very heavy. Prabhupada would say something like, if you can't do this, then what is the use of your being American? So he would probably say something like, if you can't do something wonderful, then what is the use of your being my disciple? Something heavier than that, he would say. So I'm just lightweight, but we're expecting that this great seed is planted within you, this great association has been your good fortune to receive. And as we've seen such wonderful things done, and sweet things done, and powerful things done in the service of Srila Prabhupada and Krishna by your Guru Maharaj, so we're also expecting such things from you, so that his benedictions will continue to spread more and more throughout the world. Hare Krishna.
From the very beginning of my joining ISKCON in 340 West 55th Street in New York, my only link with Srila Prabhupada was His Divine Grace, Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. At that time, he was still the GBC, but he was with Srila Prabhupada in India. And at that time, Adhikesha Swami was the temple president. So somehow or other, he sent the message that an Indian family has come to stay forever in the temple. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj responded. He gave the news to Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, yes, I predicted, because this is the biggest building ever we have in the entire world. And seeing the opulence, more Indian people will come and will want to stay in the temple. So here I was the first one. And he wrote a letter to Adhikesha. And somehow he came to my room and read out loud. Srila Prabhupada is very pleased. So from that point onwards, and subsequent to that, initiation was taking place in the absence of Srila Prabhupada, but he was careful enough to send the name and everything, because Srila Prabhupada was coming in 77 Rath Yatra, but he couldn't make it. He went back from London. So he was very careful that those who were waiting for initiation must be initiated. And somehow the Adhikesha Swami kept a day which was chanted by Srila Prabhupada himself ready for me. But there were others also. But somehow by the mercy of my God brothers, I was connected. And soon Srila Prabhupada departed. So I became an orphan. Tamal Krishna Maharaj would come to New York after that. And later on, when I joined full-time in 1979, I know in the March of 1980, I was instrumental to take all the GBCs from the North America for Mayapur. And somehow they rested on me because I was working in the life membership, and there were a lot of Indian travel agents who were giving cheap tickets. So I was commissioned to organize and also make arrangement for prasadam on the plane. So one of the passengers was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And got the experience of his demanding nature right from there. Vishnu Gadadhar Prabhu was the cook, and he made probably 50, 60 pounds of samosas because they are the only substantial food to be taken and won't spoil overnight. So, but while on the plane, the samosas get cold. So when I was serving cold samosas, Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, "What is this? Can't you get it heated up?" I said, "Where in the plane we get it heated up?" No, you go and ask the stewardess, they will do it. And he sent me. And really, they did it. And see, I told you, they got the hot samosas for me. Of course, others they didn't wait for hot samosas to come. But Maharaj was very patient that he would get. He was damn sure. So, while in Mayapur, I was supposed to take Vanaprastha at that time, and at the same time I was serving Adikesha Maharaj with Prasadam, and there got another episode. But somehow or other he invited several GBCs like Hansadulka, Panchadravik Swami, and others also, but there were three, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj was not invited. And I went out in the field close to Ganges, and I picked up some very nice tender Karelas, and I thought I should make it. And I started serving out. I knew Karelas were pretty good, and everybody would like it, so I just kept aside some in case. Otherwise, even we do not get it. So, what happened, I started serving, and there appeared Tamal Krishna Maharaj without any invitation. So where do we go? So Adikesha Swami got him a seat and said, "Okay, we have prasadam, please." And then I became more apprehensive about Karelas. So I kept some Karelas, and somehow or other he saw me hiding. And I started serving, everything was finished, and he says, "I need Karelas." And I said, "Everybody got at least 2 servings, and why should I have another one?" And all of a sudden such a demand came, and I became completely, taken back. And he saw my apprehensions. He immediately revealed, "I knew you are hiding something. I have seen you. And get it out. I need it." And I had to bring out with a little shame on my face. So there we go. So I was pretty careful in approaching Tamal Krishna Maharaj. In 1997, the GBCEC sent me for a mission impossible in Fiji. I didn't know what to do, what not to do. Nobody gave me any information about the problems there. And I had about 2 weeks. In the last 3 days, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was coming for celebration of his Vyas Puja. And I had 3 days of quite good, close association. And on one day in Lautuka, he was giving class, and somehow that I was in the classroom. He said, "Today's Bhagavatam class will be given by both of us." So he made another Vyasasana and made me sit there. He read the verse, he also led the Jai Radha Madhav chanting, and then he said, "I want you to do one thing. Whatever I speak, you translate into Hindi, and then you speak on the verse in Hindi, and then translate it back to me in English." So I had to do multiple jobs 3 times. And it was an intense session of 1.5 hours almost. And I was completely fatigued. So somehow or other, when class was finished, I said, "Ma, that was quite intense." He said, "No, this is just for practice." Last year, somehow or other, by Krishna's arrangement, please forgive me for 2 minutes more. Bhaktivedanta Maharaj was leading Mangalarti, and then Ekalavya Prabhu, who was organizing the kirtan, he came and said, "Maharaj, you may go to USA anytime, I know, so why don't you lead mission prayer?" I said, "All right." So somehow or other, I went immediately to start mission prayer. I chanted the whole prayers, and then Dinabandhu was ready for leading Tulsi Aarti. So I requested Dinabandhu, said, "Look, I may leave today for USA. Why can't I lead Tulsi Aarti also, if you can allow me?" So he permitted, yeah, go ahead. So I also led Tulsi Aarti. And the drama of Tamal Krishna's departure was being unfolded at that time. So somehow I had some physical weakness, so I came late today for Mangalarti. But then, as soon as the Mangalarti was finished and Jayatavani was spoken by Bhaktivedanta Swami, something inspired me to rush to the microphone. Ishwar Prabhu was there. I said, "Ishwar Prabhu, please allow me to lead mission prayer." And he said, "Okay." So I led today in the memory of the departure of Tamal Krishna Swami Maharaj, because the memory lives forever and we want to keep it cherished every moment. All glory to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Now, I just came from Vrindavan to attend my Guru Maharaj Pushpa Samadhi. It was a reason for me to come. But for a long time, I was very much engaged. Gurudev gave me the engagement to make money to support our temple in Cebu, Philippines. And every time I would come, my engagement was to see that he has all the necessary facility, would be very comfortable. And since I was trained in an accounting firm, I was, when I met Srila Gurudev, the training somehow helped me. As everybody has spoken, it's very demanding. But the demands of work outside is also demanding, so that was a good training to serve my spiritual master. It's amazing when I came to the Holy Dham, I got the acquaintance of so many devotees when I told them I am Balaram's brother. Because my brother Balaram served Srila Gurudev when he was a GBC chairman. And so many things came to my knowledge about the responsibilities Srila Gurudev had to take during that time. I'm very awed to see and hear the glorification of Srila Gurudev's young brothers here. And, just like what Hariswami Prabhu said, there was a change in Leela. We were feeling something. Srila Gurudev, after his operation, we didn't see him for 3 years in the Philippines. In the Philippines, he would come and it changes him. He's relaxed. He's not managing. That is like his resort, place. He would go on vacation. The Filipinos' nature is very sensitive and very loving. I would like to encourage or all of the Gurudev's God brothers to come, and we will express to you, show you how we have shown our love to him. So, as a matter of fact, last August 2001 was the last festival we had for him. And he went there to Cebu, Philippines, Hare Krishna Paradise with Giridhari Maharaj. It was a joint Vyasa Puja. And it was the first time during the Vyasa Puja ceremonies that he stood up and we offered the Bhoga to him and Giridhari Maharaj. And right from his plate, he took a spoon full of, prasad and offered it to Giridhari Maharaj, took it on his mouth. And Giridhari Maharaj reciprocated. And afterwards, he was distributing from his plate to each and every devotee. We were like birds, putting our mouth like that, and big kirtan. And, me and my brother, we have a certain nature, we have a certain jolly nature. And in one of the programs, I said, "Do you feel good?" And Gurudev said, again, something he's giving me a sign. "Do you feel good?" "I feel good." And he liked that. Gurudev liked that. And then during the farewell address, when everybody was seated in the temple room, and he was to start, and he gave me a sign, and then he looked at me, and I understood, and I said, and I shouted, "Do you feel good?" And the devotees were shocked, "What is Bharat doing?" And then when I said again, and Gurudev was giving the sign, and everybody realized, and they said, "Yes!" So during that time, Srila Gurudev was very, very sweet. He was talking during his lectures about Vrindavan Leela. He was not pushing us to do book distribution, to preach. He was like more, talking about Vrindavan. Thank you. So, he said he's coming back. So I realized his coming back would be in a different form. Just like the gopis when Krishna left Vrindavan, Krishna came to the hearts. The gopis kept Krishna in the hearts. Physically he was not present, but he was in the heart. So Gurudev is in our hearts. And also, I realized that his love for us would be in the form of his God brothers, who would be there to give us their blessings. And it is very, very nice experience because even though he's not physically present, but there are so many as qualified and exalted personalities whom we can take shelter for shiksha, for instruction. It's like Giridhari Maharaj. And if you come, please, we will work hard to give you the plane ticket for you to visit the Philippines. Thank you very much. Srila Gurudev Akita.
Be able to serve him in Dallas for 4 or 5 years. I cooked for him for 2 years. That was amazing. And preached with him in Dallas, and I also kept in close contact with him. He was very encouraging to me over the last few years. So there are so many pastimes that he has made and done with all of you all, as a servant of Krishna and as a servant of Prabhupada. And I personally witnessed many times when I was in Dallas that devotees who were having a hard time or struggling in their service, he invited them to come to Dallas, and I would just see them blossom under his brotherly association and under his love. So this is one of his wonderful essences, or his sweetness of personalism that he has given to us. And even you can see last year in the kirtans when he was here, in his room, he would be looking at everybody with so much love and look at everyone, encourage them to dance, and be smiling at everyone. I would see him go through each individual person. And it was just so amazing. Another part of him was that he wanted all of us to present this beautiful Krishna Consciousness movement in the appropriate manner that Srila Prabhupada would be proud. And I remember going on many preaching engagements with him, and people would show up for the preaching engagement, and if they weren't dressed nicely, he would say, "You're not going." "Okay, you're going." "You're not going." He really wanted to present Krishna Consciousness in a very dignified manner. And sometimes it was misunderstood that he was really heavy, or he was, very just picky, but really that wasn't it. We just wanted to present Srila Prabhupada and what we have in our movement to the best ability. So there was one program in the Unity Church that we went to, and the next day, like 5 or 6 people came for Mangal Artik and just to hear him talk. He affected so deeply that people, when we asked them why they came, they said, well, he just affected me. I felt like he was just talking to me in my heart. So we saw that so many times. And another thing that he always did was he always took the time to care and reach out to so many devotees who were devastated or who were in distress. Recently, one Prabhupada disciple lost her daughter. The daughter had died, and he didn't even know this Mataji, but he immediately wrote me an email, and he said, I pray that Prabhupada and the Vaishnava's mercy enable her to reach the destination of Krishna Loka. Please convey to her mother my heartfelt feelings.
Take pictures of this before.
So this is how he was and how he lived, always with heartfelt feelings to the maximum. And being the big brother of all the Prabhupada disciples, he also liked to reminisce about this one pastime with Srila Prabhupada, where Srila Prabhupada asked everyone to leave the room, and then he hugged Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami, which was very rare for Srila Prabhupada just to hug somebody. And he thanked him for all the hard work that he had done. Srila Gurudev would tell us about that and just smile as he was listening. So 1 year ago, when we all waved goodbye to you as you left the gate here, and then as you left this world, I know that Srila Prabhupada hugged you again. Prabhupada just reached out and hugged you again, Gurudev. And this Samadhi will always be a remembrance, a place to come and remember you who are so personal and trying to reach us always to higher levels. This very place will always give me inspiration for the rest of my life and for the next 10,000 years.
Srila Gurudev since 1978. When I joined Mayapur temple. I was very young and enthusiastic at that time. In 1979, Gurpurnima festival, all the senior devotees were coming, and I was one of the devotees who was on the Prashadam serving team for the GBCs in the Lotus building. So this is a small story I have, how I first met Gurudev. It was called the most bitter gulab jamun I ever served. I come from a Marwari family, so in the Marwaris, the first thing you eat is a sweet, and in Bengal, the first thing you eat is a bitter. And I didn't know that. I didn't know the sequence of how prasadam was to be served. So Gurudev had just arrived, and he was going to take prasad, and he was very enthusiastic to eat a nice Bengali meal in the afternoon. He had taken fresh diet and come, and he was first sitting on the right-hand side, and next to him was Bhavananda Maharaj. And very enthusiastically, I picked up the bucket of gulab jamun and served 4 gulab jamuns on his plate first. You can imagine his reaction. He immediately called me a jerk and asked me to leave. So I can imagine after I lived in Mayapur for some time, I realized what a mistake I had made. But Gurudev loved me very much, just like so many stories we're hearing that Gurudev was very personal and loving, and everyone felt very special around him. I had the same experience and same feelings about Gurudev. A few years later, in 1982-83, Gurudev was spending some time here during Chaturmas. He was eating prasad here one time, and he would have me serve from time to time. And one time I had 103 temperature, and I was upstairs in the Lotus building, couldn't come down. But he had me take a shower and come down and sit down and serve him personally. He said, unless you serve me, I cannot eat this prasad. So that was the love that he showed, and I felt very special. Like this, there were so many exchanges with there. I took re-initiation from Gurudev in 1993, and my wife and I, both of us, and he was always showing so much affection to our family. I remember at the time of initiation in Dallas, he told my wife that for you, you have to follow 5 regulative principles. And the 5th one is that you have to always cook for me. and she always remembers that. And then I was involved in doing business in America. I grew apart. I was not able to spend so much time with Gurudev or serve him nicely at all. I also moved away to Alachua, and that was very displeasing to Gurudev. He didn't like it, but for some reason my business was growing and I needed to employ more devotees, so I had to move away. And he was not in agreement with that at all. When Gurudev passed away last year, I woke up in the morning and there was a note on my table from my wife, and she left a message. And when I heard it, it was a very big shock, and my immediate feelings were that of great regret, that I was never a very good disciple. I never served my Guru Maharaj nicely. I did not listen to him. I moved away to Alachua without his permission and without his consent. So many regrets like that were there. And I was thinking that Gurudev has gone away displeased with me, and I have no way I can make up with Gurudev. So such regretful feelings were there in my heart. But a few days later, I met Bhaktivedanta Swami, and he had just come back from Mayapur festival after the entire events here. And he told me, he said that Gurudev, just before he left, 1 or 2 days before, he said that I will come to Alachua this time for 2 reasons. He said, one reason is to deny my allegations, and the second reason is to save Radha Jiva. So that were his feelings for me, and I feel very consoled that Sri Gurudev is always forgiving me, despite my offenses and my callousness towards Gurudev. So in front of all you Vaishnavas, this is my confession I make, and I beg forgiveness from Sri Gurudev and from all of you, and I hope I can be a better disciple and devotee and a servant of ISKCON society. Hare Krishna.
Under so many of the offerings. And so then, because many were saying, oh, different. You have the Tamal Krishna Maharaj, in the office, Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the home, then some others saying Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the taxi, Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the hotel, Tamal Krishna Maharaj in the train. And then it struck me is that the aspect of the part of relationships, but here not worth more talking about the principle of relationships, is that being understood, that unless things are proper, the connection is proper between 2 entities or 2 subject matters, and that interaction is proper, you won't get the proper result. And I noticed that seemed to pull together many things about Tamal Krishna Maharaj's, nature and dealings. Is that he knew what actually worked. When it's hot outside, then the water should be cooler, or if it's cold outside, it should be hotter. So many times we go back and forth, the water's too hot, water's too cold, it's too this, it's too that. Because the principle of what was trying to be established, himself, his health, the weather, the situation, or the time of the day. So taking all those into consideration, then there's a particular result. And that is the relationship between him and all these things. So then that relationship between him, each individual, each situation, and all these things, then seemingly to others would be quite bewildering, because it would be, so much variety of detail. Because if you want to perfect the relationship in any situation, then there must be so much consideration before you make a decision. As anyone who dealt with Maharaj making decisions, he'd call you into the room. He'd ask you, what's your opinion on the thing? You'd say, what your point? You'd go, oh, number 4. It means he'd already thought of 10 solutions. So he just wanted to see which was perfect for the situation, for the relationship with the perfect person, the situation, the activity to be done. So he would enter into everything. And from that, then he would understand what would be the proper thing to do in whatever situation. So then it becomes a very, sometimes bewildering for many in trying to find what is that perfect relationship that he's trying to establish. But one sees by how everybody is discussing that he would find that relationship. Or if not, as Vindasru Prabhu was pointing out before, he had thought of certain aspects, and then by someone would mention something that would broaden it, and then immediately would change. Because his desire was to create perfect relationship between himself and whoever and whatever he dealt with. So this quality came to mind this morning to show it. Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki.
I don't really know how to, speak in such a, big crowd like this of devotees. But I've been encouraged of my god brother, Radha Shankar. So I'm trying to say a little bit about the teaching, my grandmother is teaching in China. Of course, there are so many things I can say about the teaching in China. But I just, say a few things in brief. Actually, most of us must know that the teaching in China is really different than what is happening in the other countries. Whenever my Guru Maharaj comes to China to teach, so you cannot really, just Vaishnava, like in the Vaishnava, So he has to wear, normal clothes, and he has to stay in the hotel room. Actually, the first time I met him was in the hotel room in Guangzhou. And, the devotees have, they have to, pre-prepare prasadam and carry all of them to the hotel room. So because we do not have, official temples, so it's quite difficult. It's actually very austere, to preach in China. But, he was so determined, to preach. And even that, because he has so many responsibilities, of preaching, in the other countries, not only in China. So every year he will come to China 2 or 3 times. But after, he went to the college, he rarely come actually. But he never forget the devotees in China. Because he would always send his god brothers like, Mahapadi Maharaj, Giridhari Maharaj, Narasimha Maharaj, and Krishna Baladev Prabhu, and also his, senior disciples like Radhachan Prabhu, Dharmitai Prabhu, Chandrasekhar Prabhu, and also so many other senior devotees like Sankirtan Prabhu, Lordchen Prabhu, and Diva Pushpa, and so on. Yeah. He just like just like a tortoise in the sea. So the mother tortoise lay her egg on the seashore, and simply by meditating, on the eggs on the seashore, she gets her offspring. So it's quite similar, I found, Actually, I do not have much realization about how great of my spiritual master. But after hearing from all of you, glorifying my spiritual master, I actually realized his greatness. He's passing away. He's actually not only a great loss for the disciples, but actually for all our Islam movement actually. So I just pray to all of you to bless me on this auspicious day, that I will always remain in the service of the devotees, and I will always remain in this Krishna consciousness movement. Hare Krishna.
Develop our Guru Bhakti again. After having a difficult time with our spiritual life, after having to fell, he made everything very wonderful. He had very wonderful kirtans, prasadam, and for 2 months we were just chanting, dancing, and feasting so that we could forget the past, and all of us just took shelter of him completely, at that time because of this. So I was the only Indian girl then, and I was very lucky to get a lot of association. He asked Tejas Prabhu at that time, his brother, to teach me how to do Indian life membership. And ever since then I got trained up, and I would go and prepare some Indian preaching, and he would come right after that and say, go to this house, prepare the program, and then I'll come. So I got to do a lot of service that way as a brahmacharini for like 5 years. And then he got me engaged and had to move to Dallas. And there I started my Grihastha ashram.
That's okay.
He got me, married to his godbrother, Chaitanya Prabhu. And he said, both of you are preachers. You're a preacher and he's a preacher, so I think you'd make a good combination. So after my wedding, he called me up and he said, I want to give you a dowry. I want to give you some dowry because it's proper for the father to give the daughter some dowry. So he gave me a little Chinese purse with some gifts in it, and I thought it was some dust from the dam. So I just squished my hand like that. That must be soft. So when he put it on my hand, it just everything fell down, and the purse opened and everything fell on the ground. There was 2 gold rings and a chain. And he said, this ring I wore for a long time. That's the one he's wearing on the picture. And he says Radhe Shyam. And he said, you can wear that as your wedding ring. And the one with the lapis with P is for Prabhupada, that can be for your husband. And he gave me the chain that I should wear the chain. And, he directed me properly as a brahmacharini. I got to do a lot of nice personal service. I think for 2 months almost became like his personal servant. I think some brahmachari, they had done some service. He had given us this opportunity also to do that kind of service from morning to, I think I remember serving from 7 o'clock to like 9 o'clock at night. Starting 10, my first round at 9 o'clock. I think this went on for like 3 months. So then I got into my Grihastha ashram, and then I had, got pregnant with my first child. I was so much in anxiety. How am I going to continue my sadhana after so many years of this training? So I had this anxiety when I was 3 months pregnant. So when he came, he called me and my husband upstairs and he said, I want to give you some instructions. So he told me I had a lot of disciples who are great sadhikas before they got married, before they had children. But then most of them fell apart because they had children. Children kept them awake at night, and then the chants got slackened and everything fell apart. So I want you to be the role for an ideal mother. So he said, I'm going to give you this list. He told my husband, Chaitanya Chandran, follow this list. He said, here's the Mangalarti, and mention the prayers, Tulsi prayers. He said, once you have this child, while you're lying down nursing your child, so when you held his hand, like when you're nursing your child, take your beats and chant your rounds, do Mangalarti, do the whole program, cooking or cleaning, just say the prayers. So because of that, I'm able to hold my sadhana till today. So I'm very, very indebted to him. I don't feel as if I've lost my Krishna consciousness, even having children. So I'm very, very thankful for him, and he also engaged me, serving him when his professors came to Dallas. I was working in the restaurant, and I would, cook for his professors and serve a lot. So I got to get a lot of his association through preaching. And just before he left, also he wrote me a letter. I asked, I don't know why so many years I had a lot of association, but this final letter, somehow Krishna within my heart inspired me to ask questions about the last parts of my life. And he gave me some nice, wonderful instruction, which I felt I was not left behind. So I'm very, very thankful for it. And I'm very appreciative. And now his Vapu form is gone. So I'm praying that I can follow the Vani instruction way of pursuing my Krishna consciousness. So I pray that he will always remain in my heart. And I'm able to pursue my Krishna consciousness within this lifetime by following his instruction, whatever he's given to me. Thank you. And one last request is that because my husband has been his only god brother that had lived in Dallas ever since Radha Damodar till the very last time here. So I beg for his god brothers to give him some association, and Bhakti Maharaj and everybody else who comes to Dallas, please give him some association because he's feeling really lost with that Gurudev right now. So, and it's my duty also for him to travel to Malaysia, Jagatata Maharaj, and maybe they all can give him some association, at least for 3 months in a year, and maybe the rest part in Dallas for our association. Hare Krishna.
My respects to Srila Prabhupada, to Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami, and all the assembled Vaishnavas. Tamal Krishna Maharaj once told me, Srila Prabhupada had said to him, "Be a jack of all trades and a master of one." In reflecting on his life, I feel Tamal Krishna Maharaj was an expert at getting people to make commitments. The first time I saw him was on the Radha Damodar bus. I walked on that bus to see the divine couple. There they were, Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu Jan Maharaj. They were having a discussion about how to expand their party. Tamal Krishna Maharaj looked at me with those burnished steel glasses that he wore and said to Vishnu Jan, "Who is this? Or rather, who have we here?" And Vishnu Jan Maharaj said, "He's with Satsvarup Maharaj." At that moment, I was grateful to be with Satsvarup Maharaj. I was prepared to make a Satsvarup Maharaj commitment, not a Tamal Krishna Maharaj commitment at that time. 5 years later, I was a Bhakti leader in Los Angeles. I've been preaching to Bhakti Peter, who was a loyal disciple of an impersonalist guru. For almost a year, I'd been preaching to him, but he wouldn't make a commitment. One night, I invited him to come to a Nectar Devotion class by His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. After the class, Peter was ready to make a commitment. He raised his hand and said, "During your lecture, you said once if somebody blasphemes your guru, you have to cut out their tongue." So Peter stood up and started walking toward the asana. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was very calm. He said, "If you take one more step, 75 people are going to kill you." Peter kept walking, and he was promptly grabbed and thrown out of the temple. 3 years later, I was passing through Dallas. A devotee came up to me, "Do you remember me?" "No, I'm Bhakti Peter. Now I'm initiated by Tamal Krishna Goswami." So there was one side of Tamal Krishna Maharaj that could get you to make a commitment, and when you made the commitment, then you would see the other side. As for myself, many years later, I had the opportunity to work with the Mayapur project. It is a huge project, a daunting project left to us by Srila Prabhupada. We're struggling in so many ways. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was finishing his PhD and was wondering, now what will I do next? So our dear God brother Abhiram Prabhu was talking with him daily. He was going through all the lists of things he could do next after graduating. He concluded he's going to get involved in the Mayapur project. Abhiram and I ran down the stairs after that meeting like two boys on their birthday. We were so happy. And then I left and then got this news about his departure. So today I'm here to say that I'm ready to make a commitment for Tamal Krishna Maharaj's service in the service of Mayapur. Since Nareshwar Prabhu has not rung that bell, I'm going to recite a poem composed in honor of the departed Vaishnava. Krishna, why do you take back the best devotees first and leave such fools as me behind? Our happy bubbles burst.
whole day? Could that be why you always choose the best to take away? Can I enjoy a paradise in what is just a place where birth and death so rudely reign behind a painted face? Krishna, I don't know you well, but this beloved friend was someone I saw often and on whom I could depend. Krishna, since you took my friend, would you please take me too? It seems my friend has left me here to learn to count on you. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Ji.
Able to call on, but we will be having a continuation of this speaking program this afternoon at 5 in the Pandal over there. So please forgive me for that. Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Padamayham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padradha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanitanscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaja ki Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namine Esha Pushpanjali Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Iti Namine Esha Pushpanjali Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev ki Nalali Daloka Janaya Tasya Kayana Guanshakanta Shukanda Shri Vigrahara Nityanana Shingadatan Mandira Majanado Shri Vigraha
Bande Guru Sri Kadanaravi Yo Satyabhakam Chane Gundataki Bande Guru Sri Charanaravinda Julatur Vidhashi Bhagavat Prasado Sadhana Kirtan Hari Bhakta Tuna Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Krishna Sadhana Kirtan Hari Bhakta Satsaiva Vande Guru Sri Kadanaravinda Kriya Krishna Vande Guru Sri Kriteva Kritin Bhairadi Kamat Havayara Paro Madhurya Leela Gunarupana Shri Radhikana Madhurya Leela Madhurya Leela Gunarupana Shri Radhikana Madhurya Leela Pratikshanatham Dhanalala Patya Vande Guru Sri Kadanaravinda Rati Kheli Jai Yayali Viru Tira Peshani Tatratidakshan Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Tatratidakshan Ativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Tantratinaksham Ativalabhite Nakamastasate Dukasatavam Vyatadeva Sadi Shastasate Kintu Prabhaya Priyaya Vatasya Vande Gurudeva 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 Jai Gurudeva 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya 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 Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Niti Namine Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Patachari Chatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivedanta Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare